Hello and welcome to the Ratio Podcast. I am your host, Johnny Ray, and it is so good to be back with you all. Let's cut to all through the bullshit and just let's talk about some rock music. And speaking of rock, we have Dave Wyndorf of the Mighty Monster Magnet on the show today. They have a badass new covers album entitled A Better Dystopia. And you know what? Love is too weak of a word to describe what I feel for Monster Magnet. They came along at a time when I needed a rock band, and I'm glad to see us both still standing all these years later. So Dave is about to sort out all kinds of shit, so take his words to heart. He's a wise man, the real fucking deal. But before we get to the show, I just want to let you know where we are headed in the coming months and years. This podcast has always been a supporter of outsider music and art, and that's, what we believe in. We're still going to feature metal, punk, and all the other forms of artistic expression that have made the Ratio what we are. I mean, that being said, the rules have been thrown out the fucking window now, meaning we're going to have any guests we want to have on. We're going to work night and day, to bring you the coolest chats we can, with no thought given to a thematic through point, really, other than this person, band, artist is badass. We dig them. Maybe you will too. So it's about to get weird in the best way. And we're back to stay, and that's just the point. We're refreshed and ready for the long haul. Our goal from here on out is to give you an episode each week, and we deliver what we promise. So, thank you so much for your support and messages during our hiatus or whatever the fuck it was. It means everything to us, and having this outlet is one we don't take lightly. Our love and respect for you all is eternal. So now that all that mushy shit is out of the way, let's talk with Dave Wyndorf. Hello and welcome. The Ratio Podcast is back. And hailing from Red Bank, New Jersey, we have the rock and roll badass that is Dave Wyndorf of the Mighty Monster Magnet on the show today. We're going to be discussing their badass new covers album, A Better Dystopia. But without further ado, hello, Dave. How you doing, man?
Mr. Ray, what do you say?
I say I'm happy to be talking to you, sir. How the hell
Likewise.
You been during these strange times?
Oh, yeah, they are strange times. There's no going out on the road, and that's the only thing I really love. And besides reading books, that's the only thing I love to do. So it's just a lot of books, lot of books, dude.
Yes,
an album, made an album and read a lot, and now the lid's starting to come back off again. So I got stuff planned for this coming year.
Right, and I hope everything just goes through, because God Almighty, I feel like live music has been hanging by a thread. I'm seeing positivity coming back now, where we're going to get some shows and stuff. But I can only imagine with you, that's all you know, man, the road, and to be grounded by God for a couple of years straight. I mean,
grounded by God.
Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah, totally grounded by God. I don't know. I tend to think of these things in weird ways. It's like, in a lot of ways, I think this will be one of those moments that really kind of puts an actual stamp on rock. The rock is dead, rock is reinvented, kind of thing.
Yes.
Just because the music landscape has changed so much from what anyone ever knew, and it's been kind of limping along, pretending that everything's kind of the same way, except it's digital, but it's not. So maybe that whole shutdown and the reopening will actually show a path of going, all right, this was like the end of the end of something, beginning of something else. It
Right.
should it'll probably clean out some of the dead wood out there too.
I love that, dead wood. I think you're absolutely right on that. I mean, you're going to see people that really want to do this shit now.
Yeah, exactly.
And
totally really want to do it, as opposed to just going out there and just trying to pay off the house or whatever.
Absolutely.
Which is cool, but at the same way, rock is something that, I'm used to when I was a kid, changing dramatically every couple of years, and it hasn't. in a long time. It's just kind of skidding along, so it needs something kicking the ass.
It does, and you see so many people that do have very bold, that influences, but it just seems like it's all drinking from the same well sometimes. And the bands when we get into some of these artists that you covered on this amazing album, A Better Dystopia,
Yeah.
the artists I looked up to, like you take Sabbath. I mean, even there's so many people that drink from that well, and I'm like, go back and listen to the Sabbath records. They're so diverse. They're so, they had influences, and they're not showing them on their sleeve.
Yeah, I know. I totally agree. I mean, that was, I hate to say it, but that was a long time ago when there was a whole different mindset for what rock music was. It was basically loud music, and that kind of rock music was brand new. I mean, loud music didn't even come till like 67 with Iron Butterfly,
right.
And it wasn't even, you couldn't even have a PA. And it was a singles market all the way up until 67. And then it changed into this anything goes. And literally the bands, there were so many bands getting together since the Beatles started in like 64. And the people that ran the record companies just didn't understand what was going on. So they had to sign off on it. So they basically didn't know what they were doing and let the lunatics run the asylum. And it was better.
Yeah.
It was better because basically they couldn't contain all this creativity. Once the hipsters, even in the early 70s, started to get a hold of what's marketable and how to niche market and how to, that's when it got to be where it started to, the progress actually started to slow down. And it's not mean there's not good music and stuff, but it's just, it wasn't quite the same. So when you're mentioning to me that Sabbath had a lot of diversity, and when people now you think of, being influenced by Sabbath, it's like, well, where's the mellow songs? Where's all the, where's all the weirdness?
And I guess with heavier music, with a heavier side, I guess that was more of what I was talking about, especially in music that I consider you guys rock and roll, and I always have.
Yeah, me too.
And but in that's as dangerous as it gets to me. Much more dangerous than just screaming at people, which I'm down with that too. So.
I think the whole screaming thing, that's just basically like, that's an adolescent male thing.
Oh, absolutely.
They're not like thinking about girls and stuff, which is what Monster Magnet was always thinking about. It was like, well, I know there's going to be more guys listening to it because it's heavy, but if there's any girls out there, you're going to have to appeal to them too. It was like co-educational exercise. The metal thing kind of went off into just like dudes playing music for other dudes, which was really uncool to me.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Stupid, it's like, why are you doing this?
Yes. Well, like one thing I want to talk about, every time I see somebody announce a covers album, I mean, I almost want to vomit.
I know.
And when I saw the ridiculously cool choices you guys made on this, I was excited about a covers record. And somebody at work had heard you guys put Mr. Destroyer out. And I was like,
what a song.
I was like, holy shit, he covered Mr. Destroyer, because I just had not seen the press. I was like, did he do the intro? And they're like, no, there was no intro. But I was just like, that's a song. I mean, they were jamming to that all night. And they went back and checked out the original. So what was the initial idea? What put this in your head to make a covers album?
Well, a covers album is always something you keep in your back pocket if you're in a band. Like, all right, if you run out of steam and you're going to have to deliver something for the record company, if you made a commitment to make an album, you can always do a covers album. There have been songs that I just thought were the coolest songs in the world, and nobody ever heard them. And I was like, I can't believe that no one ever heard this song. I mean, I knew they were obscure, but plenty of the obscure songs at least get known. And over the years, I'm looking at stuff like, well, just a lot of the stuff on this record, most of the stuff on this record, I noticed it's like, okay, it's been 30 years and still nobody plays this stuff. All right. It's time for us to do a cover record. We just got a tour cut in half by COVID. So he couldn't finish the second half of the tour
Right.
because of COVID, and everyone's all amped up. The band's all rocking and ready to go. It's like, what the hell? I said, all right, rather than us sit around and like watch TV and get bummed out, why don't we just go right in, to my drummer's studio, a little, kind of like demo studio, and just do this. Finally, the time has come. I finally got the excuse to do all, a lot of my favorite songs from way back when. And I think it actually makes sense because it shows you, and at least it showed me, I was like, here are two different times in history. One when I was a little kid, when the world was completely out of control. I came of consciousness I was 12 years old, like 1969, and the world was nuts. It was out of control. America was burning, there was protests every week and all this insanity. And the media actually used words like apocalypse and end times and stuff. So flash forward now, we go to 2020 and they're using the same words again. And I was like, well, where's the music to reflect this? I didn't hear it. I didn't, the music of 2020 didn't sound like 2020 felt. But I tell you, the songs that I picked for this record, that sounds like 1969 and 70.
Oh, absolutely.
That really sounds like it's insane.
Some of the, just starting the album with A Diamond Mine, I guarantee you there's going to be so many people that have just never heard of Dave Diamond. They never heard of Diamond Dave, but, and just starting the record with something that bold and strange and awesome, it just brought a big smile to my face. And it just, what you were just saying, the states were on fire. America was in this crazy fucking time. And
we're talking Altamont, Charles Manson, Vietnam, threat of nuclear war, riots. Every single week from 1965 to like 1972, we had riots every single week. Damn. Things were on fire.
Oh my God.
I remember that as a kid. Like, I guess it's the way the world's supposed to be. It's supposed to be on fire all the time. I had no idea.
Right.
That things would like get back to quote unquote normal within 5 or 6 years of my young life. Everything was like back to like, well, okay, boring old America. I thought the world was supposed to be like that. So my introduction to culture was through old black and white TV, which was the old world, and this frantic explosion of music and culture that happened from like, say, 64 to 75, where things changed every day. Things changed literally. The music changed every day. Every like 6 months, there was a new sound.
Right.
It went from the Dave Clark Five to King Crimson to Yes, Black Sabbath, Eno, Roxy Music, Sly and the Family Stone, Alice Cooper. Not even to mention all the folk rock and stuff. It was just a real mixed bag, crazy stuff.
And you could go the thing, mentioning just how eclectic the artists you just mentioned. The great thing about then, you could go to a bill and see all those bands,
dude, for $3.
Yeah, and it's like
bands they didn't rock didn't get really, really big until about 74, 75. And that's when all the bands started charging more, and that's when all the stadium stuff started because bands wanted to make more money.
Yeah.
And they got it. The rock was growing. But for that short amount of time, all that stuff, you could go see like Jethro Tull and Yes, and 10 years after and Black Sabbath for $3.
Hell yeah. Oh my God.
Crazy.
And this is a little off subject. I remember you in an interview. I even looked for this story, and I've thought about this for years. I remember you saying in an interview one time you saw Angel back in the 70s.
Yes, I did. Yeah.
And you said at the end of the show, I can't even tell you how many times I've been loaded and just thought of this and just laughed till I cried. But you said at the end of it, there was like a head. They had like a stage prop that was speaking almost, just up there.
It spoke. It was the Angel logo.
Yes.
With this he had a 4-pointed star and a head, and the head spoke and told you to buy merch.
Oh yeah, I'll never forget. You said at the end of the show, Like it spoke and said, "Now go and tell your friends
Tell your friends.
you've seen Angel." And
Dude, I think you can find it on YouTube. I think you can find. I don't know if you can find the end part, but you can find the beginning where they have, and it's a voice of a famous. It's like not David Hemmings, but it's a famous narrator, like a talkover guy, probably a movie trailer guy who used to do voiceovers for Sword and Sandal movies.
Oh wow.
50s, gladiator movies and stuff. And he does this whole thing where he introduces the band, and the introduction of the band is just a dark stage, the Angel logo speaking, and this guy's voice, and then God created Punky Meadows, and Punky Meadows walks out on stage. I'm telling you, it was one of the best, most funniest, coolest, weirdest, stupidest things I've ever seen in my life, which is why I love rock, because it's all the above.
That's profound what you just said, and that sums up everything I love about Monster Magnet. About when you guys came along. I mean, just that every bit of it is just as important as what you just said. It's stupid.
It's all important.
Cool.
It's all Spinal Tap, and it's all, it's like, as much as you want to be serious about it, and it is serious, in the end, it all comes out as somewhat of a Spinal Tap thing.
Right.
You can't help it. It's got this life, the whole rock, the whole going on stage thing just brings out this stuff that even in your wildest, most controlling efforts cannot stop.
Right.
And that's kind of why it's so cool. How you can have like 5 people in one little clot of people, just maybe at 16 thinking this is the coolest thing ever. And then you go over and there's a clot of 5 people that are 21 going, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Not to mention reviewers and all that stuff. It's fantastic. And it doesn't really happen like that in any other medium. It's not like TV or something. That's everyone making these decisions at the same time while this event is going on.
And that's you just said it. That's it. That's what makes it so unique. It's
yeah.
Well, speaking of Monster Magnet, what's a deep cut or even a one of your hits that you would like to see covered or reinterpreted by someone?
Oh shit! I don't even think about that. Yeah, I would love. I mean, I'd be totally interested in anybody would cover anything at Monster Magnet. There's this old lady, this like granny lady that plays Space Lord on acoustic guitar. And sings with a real low voice. It's like total post-menopause, like awesome granny voice.
Awesome.
And she does on YouTube, and I love it.
Oh, I'm going to check it out.
Way better. Sings it way better than I do.
Well, or there've been any other covers other than that of artists? Have you ever had a fellow artist coming to you, man, that motherfucking song, bummer, or something like that? I'd love to cover that.
Here and there, they're out there. I haven't seen anybody of any like big stature do it.
Right.
But I've seen like little bands across Europe and stuff like that. And we got a really good following in Europe, which I kind of pointed the boat in that direction about 15 years ago because I realized that the whole rock thing was fizzling out in America. Culture was changing, and I was like, America really wasn't the place for straight ahead rock or psychedelic rock anymore. It wasn't going to be like that, ever again, just because so many culture changes, hip hop took over.
It did.
And so basically rock was, if you were going to be inventive with it, or if you weren't going to knock on specific doors, like become a strict oldies act, that America probably would not be the place to play it.
Right.
Now, that's not to say that if you're in a metal band, it's because, being totally metal is a different story. I mean, metal is metal and is metal forever. But the kind of stuff I did was, had a lot of innuendo in it, and it had a lot of nods and winks and stuff. And it was actually, it's pretty sophisticated in understanding it, although it doesn't look like that. I had to go to some place where I could be fresh like that. And Europe was a place. So while we still do America, we do Europe, 5 times more. And that's where the bands that covered us came from.
Right. And, when you go over there and you see the crowds you're playing to over there, you know, and you see how rock is received in the States, it's got to be frustrating. But at the same time, don't you kind of feel like, hey, we're out here, man. We're fucking doing this, you know, still, and we're doing it right.
Always. Well, I always tell the guys, I was like, you know, there's nobody else doing quite what we do, you know, so be proud of it. I'm really happy, and that's the reason I do it, because, you know, what was once considered, you know, when I was a little kid, which is a long time ago, a little kid, you know, and by the time the, you know, rock got big and it kind of went into stadium size, it was the whole power trio and, you know, guitar format was just laughed at because, you know, it was just overdone and done so badly for so long. But I remember saying, like, once this stuff goes away, it's going to be hard to actually get this stuff together and do it right again. Yeah. Unless you really pay attention to those old beats and just the technique and all that stuff. I said, someday rock is going to go away and it's going to be like vaudeville, but it'll come back like jazz. And it'll be, you know, there'll be a small group of people, very, very heartfelt, that'll be into doing it and into watching it if it's done correctly. Right. You know, with the original spirit involved, the original technique, you know, which is, you know, you got to know your stuff. You know, I got to know your bass players and your old drummers and all that stuff. And that's what we do. You know, I mean, I'm like influenced by Black Sabbath, Hawkwind, the Stooges,
Groundhogs.
I mean, I'm talking about the most underrated band in history. Who talks about the ground? No one. Right. Well, Groundhogs.
Kind of going on to what I was saying, you guys doing it right. When I was a younger man, I read you in an interview. In an interview, you stated when you're writing with somebody, you got to be able to look at them, like if you're wanting to bend a riff or something, and just look at them and go, Groundhogs. And I went and had to special order Split, the CD, and I mean, you know, that's how this story keeps going. Is, you know, me reading that interview years ago, checking that out. You know, now I can't imagine my life without that fucking band. You know,
I mean, have you ever in your life? It's like, how could something this unique sounding go unnoticed for so long?
It's unbelievable. Well, you know, I think it's the old story when you start learning about management and things like that. And,
yeah,
you know, it's you look.
You know, he's still alive too.
Yeah.
Tony McPhee, and he still goes out and, you know, he sits on a stool in like some pub somewhere, and it's like, this guy is like nobody else. I mean, those records that he did, his overdubbing, his guitar, that like post Hendrix blues thing, where most people just kind of hacked it out, you know, it will sound like Cream, or, you know, it doesn't matter, it will sound like Cream or sound like Zeppelin. He did it in a way that didn't sound like any of those bands.
Absolutely.
You know, he really kept the blues in there, and he kept all this crazy blues in there.
Well, it's like,
I can't believe it.
You know, Judas Priest, you take a band that's known as a metal, you look at their 70s records, they're rock, man. They're kind of in the, you know, I mean, it's they didn't forget the rock, you know.
I've talked to those guys before, the guitarists from there. They're really cool. They remember all that stuff very, 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 very much.
Right.
Yeah,
Well,
cool.
hey, Davey, but I got a couple more questions for you, but it's so nice to hang with us this afternoon. But
sure.
Last Patrol and Mastermind. Now, two fucking amazing records, also with Mindfucker. Now, you did the reimagining and the redo. How did you get this idea? And I know, you know, it's good something to have in the chamber, but I think it's such a great idea, and the records just complement themselves perfectly. So where did this come from?
Thanks. I'm glad. I'm glad you noticed. I mean, you know, my record company, you know, at the time, they didn't understand what I was doing, and why should anybody? I mean, we don't live in, you know, we live in a kind of world where everyone likes to be told completely what you're doing, and it has to make sense very fast, or they don't have enough time to contemplate it. You know what I mean? So it's hard to get, like, you know, how do you get a hit record, whatever that means? But I couldn't get much focus on stuff, and I knew I wouldn't on that. Like, hey, guess what? I'm going to go back and redo a bunch of songs in weird ways just because I feel like doing it, and I think it's going to be a cool listening experience, and it's going to teach me a lot about recording and how lo-fi I can get and how much I can change the mood on basically the same song. But if I change, you know, it's just like too much to ask of people to get into. I thought it was a good idea because I could learn a lot about recording at home
Right.
Because I had been doing all my recording in studios with engineers, and the home recording stuff like that had gotten so good at that point that you could actually do records from home,
Right.
as opposed to before where it was a little dicey. So I took that opportunity to go in there and redo a bunch of stuff and just put a different spin on it, and to try to make odd little bips and bops of stuff and see how lo-fi I can get, how I could put like a 60s spin on some stuff and just an odd spin on a lot of stuff. It was really a lot of fun. Probably the most fun I had in making records in a long time.
Well, the proof's in the pudding, man, because, I mean, when you take something like that, a song lives on its own, has its own life, but there's so many sides to a song, you know, and just being able to just piece by piece, just sit there, play one version of it, and then bam, go right over to the companion record. I just think both, especially those, Last Patrol and Mastermind, anybody that is not worshiping those records is just, you're fucking missing out, man. And the same with Mindfucker. And but I got one more question for you, and I gotta ask you this. And with all the love of the world, were you guys one of the first names for Monster Magnet? Was that Airport 1975?
Yes, it was.
That is so goddamn badass in a way.
We played a couple shows with that name too.
I love everything about that. Me and let's start a covers band, like a Lucifer's Friend covers band, and just call it Airport 75. You know.
Oh my God. Dude, don't get me started. Lucifer's Friend, believe me, man.
In fact,
that first record, that is just a masterpiece of fucking cool ass rock.
Stone cold classic. And
man, I mean, the organ playing and the panning on the record, that was Dieter Dirks, the guy that later produced all those
Scorpions records. Yeah. And then
that record that's way underrated. I mean, that is like, and John Lawton singing. John Lawton, he just died. That's the beginning. And like, where do you think Immigrant Song came from?
Absolutely. Yeah.
That Zeppelin Strikes Again. Jimmy Page Strikes Again.
Yes. Well, you look at their later. You look at Lucifer Friends later. They got a little proggy after that record.
They got proggy and jazzy and stuff. Yeah,
and I love those fucking records too.
I like them too. I like them all too.
Well, Dave, one last before I let you go, man. What's the future for Monster Magnet? When are you guys getting back on the road? And anything else you want to let us know that's going down? Let us know.
Right now we're gonna do New Year's Eve in New Jersey. That'll be the first show since the pandemic, and that's a kind of a celebration of the 30th anniversary of Spine of God and Tab.
Oh yeah!
So our first record. So we're going to do that in its entirety, and then I've got a European tour set for June of 2022, and hopefully the world will have its shit together, so I can go from country to country without
absolutely
weirdness going on. And that's up for the whole summer in Europe, and then a further headline tour of Europe, and then back to the States for a headline tour of the States in 2023. So hopefully most of this shit should be moved out of the way. I mean, people are touring now, but the tours keep getting interrupted so much, it's probably not a good idea to go out.
I'm just looking. I feel like the wheels are just going to completely fall off when you got, especially some of these bigger tours, 40, 50 people traveling. I mean, it just...
Yeah, there's no... I mean, if you look, if the biggest germaphobe in the world, Gene Simmons, gets COVID, after 2 days on tour...
Yes.
I think that tells you something, I'm sure he had really good security, but it's... what's going to happen? Who knows? This is a new one for everybody.
Yes, this is so unprecedented. It's so, I mean, God Almighty. You talk about when in the late '60s with the way things were. This is just a whole different thing.
Yeah. When you put the plague on top of everything, that changes a lot. Hey, there's a little plague going on. Plague? Yeah. Holy shit. Okay.
Well, man, it was such an honor to talk to you. We wish you the best and safe travels on the tour, man. And when you get something here in the States going, come by through our little town and throw on a rock show, man.
Athens is like got a big place in my heart. Like I told you, I stayed there once back in the olden days of like late 70s. I think it was, I said 78, but I think it was like 79. And we played down there in my first band, Shrapnel. And we played down there in somewhere in Athens. And then we spent the night at somebody, and I can't remember who, somebody from the B-52s said you can crash at our house.
Nice.
And I can't remember who it was. And we crashed at the house and discovered the whole Athens thing and was like, wow, there's an oasis of massively good culture right here.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm glad it's still going. I mean, it really was. It stood out from other places in the States. It was like, nobody knows about this.
Right.
You know, it's its own San Francisco. You know, it's its own little thing.
It really is. And those are kind words that hold a lot of weight here. Thank you for saying that about our little town.
Oh, it was very, very noticeable from the very beginning that we had gone into a place that was just far away enough from the big cities.
Right.
But close enough to know what was going on, to make something that was uninterrupted by massive commercial concern. And it was art first. And it was really good-spirited art and inventiveness and just good vibes, you know. I mean, I hate to sound like a hippie, but it was like massively good vibes. And even at that age, I think I was maybe 18, I know it. This isn't like New York. You know, New York was negative. And I was in the punk scene in New York. It was like, it's all about you celebrate what you hate. You know, that's what the late 70s is about. Celebrate what you hate. But in Athens, it was like, no, we celebrate what we like.
Right. Oh, man, that's
Big
a
difference.
Great way to put it, man.
Big difference.
Great way to put it. Well, Dave, thank you so much. And I can't tell you enough thank yous for doing this. And everybody needs to go out and get Monster Magnet's amazing cover record, A Better Dystopia. Throw on Mr.
You won't be disappointed. It's like 45 minutes of psychocentric rock.
So how cool is Dave? Please do yourself a favor and go out and get their latest record, A Better Dystopia, and hell, get all their fucking records. That's it for our show this week. Stay switched on, and we will see you next week.